I had an epiphany recently because I've been asked the same question over and over again by people about buying in Punta Cana. And the question usually comes after they've seen in the news there's a development or a developer or whatever that's going south. Somebody screwed something up, there's maybe a lawsuit being filed or whatever. And what they'll ask is Vistacana a good opportunity to invest still? Or Capcana or Cocotal? And I realized something after a moment. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I don't think people understand how Punta Cana is structured. And it makes sense, because I didn't quite get it either when I moved here back in 2022. I kept hearing realtors say words like the project, and they'd use phrases like maintenance fees and all these other things that, like, for my American brain, like, I kind of got it, but it felt like something new and different. And it took me a while to understand what I'm gonna teach you today, which is exactly how Punta Cana is structured, and really why asking about this community or that community is the wrong question. And then even more than that, I wanna give you the right questions to ask and the right way to make sure that you do two things with your investment in Punta Cana. One, that it becomes easier, and two, that it becomes less risky. And look, I'm gonna use a few different things. I got some stuff I wanna write out. I'm gonna show you some maps. We're gonna get really in detail on this because I wanna make sure this concept lands before you run down here and start thinking about buying stuff. I bought a bunch of markers and crap. I think red or blue I'll use. Maybe one or both. Who knows? But let's get started. Now, you might be sitting there saying, like, I don't know what a what did you say? Cana, this, wow, I don't know. I'll explain all of that. But the thing is, the reason I say the wrong question is being asked is because I think there's a misunderstanding about the different layers of organizations in play when you're looking at buying here in Punta Cana. And how while you have to do your analysis and your due diligence, there's really two different areas of analysis and due diligence to do. It'll make sense, I promise you. Let's start with this blue marker. All right. When you think about the United States and you think about like cities and towns and all of that stuff, I'm a lefty, so I'm gonna do it this way. You have a clear understanding of the different organizations, the different government and or neighborhood structures that there are. So in a state in the United States, this is how it would break down. You would have first, you have your county within the state first, right? Like, what county do you live in? And then your county, within it, you have a town or city. You got a part in my hand already, right? You have the county, the town or city that the county, or that is within the county that you might live in. And then within that town or city, you have, I don't know, what do you want to call it? Your subdivision, your neighborhood, your community, whatever it might be, but a little segment of the town or city that you live in, which is within the county. Now, here in Punta Cana, there's a whole bunch of different areas that people ask about and want to invest in. They're popularized, they're marketed, and all of that stuff. So what happens a lot in Punta Cana is these communities, people are looking at them as if they are a subdivision or a neighborhood or a sub-community. They're not looking at what they are, which is the town or the city. It's not making sense. Let me show you. I'm gonna show you right now on a map. Check this out. All right, so what you're looking at right here on this map, this segment that's all like in red and white, you know, like you can see it here. It's like outlined. This is Punta Cana. Punta Cana is its own municipality. That happened, I don't know, a year ago. There's still some formality to it, but it is its own municipality. It actually started as just a brand. Punta Cana was the name given by the founders of what is the airport and the little neighborhoods around the airport. And then everybody else kind of used the name. They used the word Punta Cana, you know, ex-resort Punta Cana, but there was no Punta Cana. But now there is. It's an actual municipality, and this is what it is right here. I'm showing you it in this map. So the way to think about Punta Cana in the context of the US and this whole thing, Punta Cana, let's do red. Punta Cana on this map would be the county. So your county here, consider it that, will be Punta Cana. Now, within Punta Cana, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit, you've got all these different popular, well-known developments or areas that you can invest in. Like down here, this area right here, this is Capcana. Capcana is a luxury, gated, walled-off community. It's huge, as you can see here. I think it's like 2 Manhattans or the size of Manhattan or whatever, but it's got a ton of stuff in there. There's resorts, there's residences, there's different neighborhoods within it, so on and so forth. But that's one, Capcana. If I move a little further north right in here, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit here. This area right here is known as Punta Cana Village. Punta Cana Village, just where I live, is probably the premier residential community for families in not only Punta Cana, but maybe the entire country. And then adjacent to Punta Cana Village, right down here in this area, let me circle it for you, is Punta Cana Resort. Right here, all of this area. And within that, you've got areas like Arrecife, you've got Corrales, you've got Tortuga, you've got Hacienda, you've got all these different communities within Punta Cana resorts. You go up here a little bit further, and we're gonna zoom in again here. This area right here is known as Cocotal. That is a golf community here in Punta Cana. And then here, right next to downtown, this whole area here, this is known as Vistacana. That's the area I was mentioning before. And a lot of people look at this because there are thousands of units being built inside of Vistacana. It is a massive development here in the Punta Cana area, all residential. Vistacana, I'll put it here, Vistacana. Punta Cana Resorts, Punta Cana Village, Cocotal, Capcana, all of these would be considered towns within the county of Punta Cana. And when I get questions about the validity of Vistacana or Capcana or Punta Cana Village or Punta Cana Resort, it's asked in a way as if it is a subdivision, as if it is a step down into one of these neighborhood or communities within the city that is Vistacana or Punta Cana Village or Punta Cana Resort or whatever. So going back to the map here in Vistacana, right? Let's do this. I'm gonna get rid of this. We're gonna zoom in. All right, so here we go. Once you go inside, you've got all these different subdivisions within Vistacana, within the city. You have Panorama Lake, Panorama Gardens, Melcon Paradise. That might be just outside of it. No, it's part of it. What's over here? Something Vistacana. Ashton School is a school inside of Vistacana. Over here, you've got Pueblito Caribeño. You've got Palmas 2 at Vistacana. Over here, you have Tropics Golf Suites, Dumas Lux Townhouses, EOS Vistacana, and so on. There's probably even more if I zoom in. Kind of lofts, Sendero residences. There's so many little communities within the Vistacana, the city. And what happens is in each of these communities, all of these, because this is a growing area and it's being built, you've got developers. And in some cases, these developers are solely only making every property in a subdivision. So when I look, for instance, at, where is it? Pueblito Caribeño, which I just saw a second ago. Here. Pueblito Caribeño is a really cool looking, residential area that's being meant to look like an authentic Dominican town, like Zona Colonial in Santo Domingo. That's all being made inside of that project, that development, by one developer called Paseo del Sendero, or at least I'm pretty sure that's the developer. It doesn't really matter. The point is, like, that one community is also the developer. It's the same thing, one and the same. Whereas if you go down here, forget that yellow line, to Punta Cana Village, here in the village, each of the homes being developed in the village are by different developers. It's not one developer developing the whole thing. But what happens is people hear about a developer specifically that's having an issue. Now, if it's in a Punta Cana Village, if that developer is having an issue, it's not even anything to do with the subdivision or the neighborhood within Punta Cana Village, nor does it have anything to do with the city, the town, which is Punta Cana Village. But the question becomes, what's the validity of Punta Cana Village? Let me take it a step further. When I lived in the United States, the last place I lived was in Michigan, the beautiful state of Michigan. I'm from New York, lived in Boston, but Michigan was the spot I moved with my job before I left it in 2021. And when I lived there, I lived in Livingston County, Michigan. That was the name of the county I was in. And the township I was in was Brighton. Beautiful little bedroom community outside of Ann Arbor, Brighton, Michigan. Again, pardon my handwriting. Now, within Brighton, there are a whole bunch of subdivisions, dozens of them. The one I lived in was called White Pines. White Pines was the name of the neighborhood, which you can't read. That's okay, because it's there. It says it. So Livingston County, Brighton, White Pines. Now, within White Pines, there are a whole bunch of houses being built, or there were over time, by different developers. And let's just say this one developer right here had a major issue, and they were building 5 houses within the development. Imagine if somebody said to you, because they heard of 5 developers or 5 properties by one developer inside of this subdevelopment, and they said, hey, do you think should I avoid Brighton? Doesn't make sense, right? But that's what happens here. And it's not because somebody's dumb or being ignorant. It's just that it's hard to understand because, again, realtors use terms here that literally translate to words that just don't quite work in the United States for us, or at least we don't think about them in the same way. So I wanted to break down this framework where you have an idea that, hey, look, if I'm in Livingston County, Michigan, town of Brighton, and the subdivision is White Pines, and there's a developer within White Pines building houses, that would be like Punta Cana is the county, Vistacana is the city within the county, and then you've got, I don't know, what do we see? Panorama as the subdevelopment, and then within Panorama, you might have XYZ developer as a developer. And again, XYZ developer might be developing all of Panorama, but it's still one element of the whole of the city of Vistacana. So when you're curious about the viability of a community, I think it's important to understand where it sits in that stack. Is it a city that you're asking about, a subdivision, or a developer within the subdivision? And then make your assessment. Now, just like in the US, if there were multiple subdivisions and multiple developers within those subdivisions that were having problems, and it became like a big thing for the town of Brighton, I'd want to know from the town of Brighton, hey, look, what are you doing about permitting? What standards are you using? What does zoning look like? Like, what's the zoning commission doing to allow these developers in? Because so many of them are creating houses and whatever that are not going well. The onus then comes on to Brighton to say, hey, look, you've got to have better control over who you allow to build within this city. Otherwise, the city's validity or credibility gets questioned. And it's no different here. If you're talking about, you've heard news about one developer, and that one developer down here, the developer is screwing up big time, maybe even fraudulent, who knows? What you want to know is this a bigger problem than that one developer? Did Vistacana or Capcana or whomever this developer is working inside of, whatever city they're inside of, did they scrutinize this properly? Did one get away? I mean, it happens, it sucks. Of course, people lose money, all of that, but the point is like, how big a problem is it? Maybe even better said, if I go back to this example, imagine in the town of Brighton, right? There's a one little area over here. We're gonna put a little red dot on it, right here. That is a high crime area, and this circle is the entire town. Well, before I swear off for Brighton, I'm gonna look at that and say, well, wait a minute, that's over here. I can live almost anywhere else and avoid this high crime area, so I'm not gonna write off Brighton because of one little spot that's not good. But if this little spot started to grow and become a bigger and bigger part of Brighton, now I might say, you know what, this whole, like almost a third, maybe a third of this town has gone from a little bad area with a lot of crime to a whole big part of that area that has a lot of crime. I might want to avoid this. Now the town becomes the issue. In many cases here in DR, we see one developer pop up as having a problem, delayed construction, misappropriating funds, unable to finish the project, whatever it might be, and we associate it immediately to the validity of the city that it's in. That's tough. Real tough. So here instead is what I would say is the better way to do this. Let's see, do I have another color in here? I really don't. So we'll go with red. I look at it like this. There are two different entities that you need to do your analysis on. The first is the developer themselves. You need to understand, are the developers good, are they bad? What's their track record? All of that good stuff. And the other is the actual community or the city as we were describing. So you got the developer and you got the community. You need to do due diligence on both of them. So some questions you might wonder about the developer is like, do they have a track record? Yeah, let me hold this up for you guys. Do they have a track record? Are they well funded? Do they have title or do they have contract? Oops, I spelled that wrong. Or do they have contract on the land only? Is there leadership in country or are they from another place? These are all questions you may want to ask to understand what's the validity, how good is the developer? For the community, you might ask questions like, what are the amenities? What about infrastructure? Like, do they have good water, electricity? Do they have enough roads? Do they have sidewalks? Those sorts of things. Heck, even things like fire mitigation, hydrants, like are those part of it? Is there a school? What's the value of that school? How good is it? How bad is it? All of that stuff. These are things you might scrutinize about the community. And then between these two things, you're gonna decide, okay, I'm satisfied with all of what the community offers, and I've done my due diligence on the developer, so I'm gonna invest in this community and that developer, and I think that mitigates my risk the best. But here's the other issue. When you're doing this, when you're looking at developer and community, I look at the amount of room above these two, right? Like without being knowledgeable about the area or local to the area or having the kind of relationships that you should have before you proceed with making an investment in a place like the Dominican Republic in Punta Cana, there's a lot of room for the developer or the community itself to cost you money. A lot of money can go out the top or it can come out the bottom. And in my experience and what I've done is I think there are two ways to cap or limit the amount of risk there is in the money going out either way. And that's by pulling something together from the developer side and from the community side on the top end and from the developer side and the community side on the bottom end. Here at the top, you've got a realtor. When you hire a great realtor, they can help you scrutinize the developer, the community that it's in. They can give you all the insides and outs when you hire a great one. This realtor also becomes your MLS. There isn't an MLS in DR, so this person is the one that has access to the entire market. If you're dealing with a realtor who only has their own stuff and only pushes their own stuff, that's not a great realtor. That is a realtor. A great realtor is engaging with all the other realtors. They're more interested in collaboration than competition because they know they're doing the best for the person in the middle of this, which is you. So a great realtor is priority one to vet the developer and vet the community or the city that you're buying the development in. On the other end of that, you want to get an attorney. An attorney will cap the downside risk of you losing if you invest in a community or developer. Having these two together, a realtor and an attorney, helping you navigate who the developer is, where the community is or the city is that you're investing in, Vistacana, Capcana, Punta Cana Village, wherever in the country as well, I'm just using Punta Cana right now as an example, are two important allies that you need to have to mitigate your risk. Before you saw, I did not have these blue lines. These blue lines to me act as like money defenders, like let's keep your money here. I don't want it escaping through the top. I don't want it escaping through the bottom. Now I intentionally left a little space here because, let's be clear, investing inherently means there is risk. There's always you can get the greatest realtor attorney and just something could happen. Who knows? There is risk. But you see, like we're capping, we're mitigating the risk. We're putting some barriers up to funnel the risk down to a smaller percentage chance that you lose or you get into the wrong development or you get into something that has unreasonable, ridiculous delays or whatever it might be. You create some guardrails for yourself to make sure your money stays here between the community and the developer, and it goes up and to the right over time by increasing the value of the asset that you're investing in. That's pretty good. Look at that. We should make a little thing about that and put it out there. So look, let's just be clear on this right now first. When you hear about stories of a specific developer having a problem, getting sued, or whatever it might be sure to understand whether or not that's a reflection on the community in which that developer is operating. Now, Vistacana specifically came up recently because there was some articles about a development I heard that might have some problems, that might be facing litigation. I don't know all the ins and outs of it. Everything is alleged. No idea. And Vistacana, from what I saw, came out and said, hey, look, you know what? We're going to go out and make sure that we double down and re-scrutinize all developers coming in, because we're seeing some quality issues within, yes, that one development, but even in some others, there are some concerns. You have to decide whether or not that sort of mindset for a developing community is the right one. For me, it is. That's the way they should be operating. They should be looking at it and saying, okay, look, we're growing, we're in growth mode. Maybe we got a little loose in some of the guidelines for developers coming in, or we didn't scrutinize some of them for the size and scope of what they can develop. Let's rein it back a little bit. Let's put new standards in place or reiterate standards we had previously and make sure that development is sustainable in this community versus just unchecked. Growth has pain. My kids have pain in their legs sometimes when they go through growth spurts. It is a natural part of life. What helps my kids in their growth is that they have supportive parents who let them know, no, this is okay. This is what that is. Maybe they need a little bit of Tylenol or acetaminophen or whatever if we decide to give them something to help them mitigate that pain. But growth comes with pain in many different ways. And the same thing happens here. However, the same way, this is your acetaminophen, this is your ibuprofen. Hiring a realtor, hiring an attorney helps to at least mitigate the pain, limit the amount of pain you may feel going through the process of buying here in DR. Many of you, if you're watching this and you've purchased, and maybe you had a great realtor, you had a great attorney, and the project that you bought into is building and it's getting there and it's getting to the point, but it's 2 years behind where they told you. That's painful, but it's mitigated versus the person who never is going to see their project because they didn't hire the realtor or they didn't hire the attorney or both, and they just went with the cheapest thing they could find, and lo and behold, voila, that organization, that developer didn't have the ability, the organization, the funding to get the project across the line, and that money is gone. Doesn't even have to be a scam. Doesn't have to be like they intended to. It just could be disorganization. But when you deal with the best that you can in the realtor and the attorney space, at a minimum, you severely improve the chances that you're going to see your money get invested right and go up. Now look, I'll give you 2 things that I think can help you out quite a bit in your journey to acquire real estate or move here to the Dominican Republic. Number 1 is a robust referral network. You want a great realtor, you want a great attorney, I've got some folks I can easily recommend for you. There's a QR code right here, or you can go to jamiegruber.com/referrals, fill out any of the forms in there for these folks, a home inspector, a water filtration guy, and any number of other people that you might need to help you feel like you're getting the best deal and protecting that deal. But even more important than that, check out the DR Inner Circle by scanning this QR code right here, or you can go to jamiegruber.com. We'll leave it up there for a second, because this is a community that's going to provide you not only roadmaps and pathways based on others' experiences, but then you're going to be able to interact with 1,200 plus other people that have experience living here, investing here, or are currently buying here as well, so that you can get your questions answered on different developers. Maybe they have a realtor recommendation that they think is even better than the ones you can get on the form that I'm going to send you. Whatever it takes. What I can do for you is help you with your referral network, network and your actual community of people that are moving and investing here. With my sole objective, with everything I do, including the inner circle, to make it easier and less risky to invest and move to the Dominican Republic. At one point, I went and toured Vistacana to give you a sense of what it looks like. I'll put that video right here so that you can take a look at it, go through the property, go through the city, the community, so you can see what it looks like inside. And I hope that's helpful for you. I'll see you on the next one.